Hi, this is Jill from Fabric Garden, and this morning we're going to make the hot stuff trivet. This is a trivet and pot holder that has a silicone insert that can withstand temperatures up to 500 degrees. So this is a nice upgrade from the hot pad we normally make with Insulbright or batting. So you're going to need your pattern, you're going to need your silicone insert, and you will need to cut the fabrics as indicated in the pattern. So we're going to get started here. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to put the silicone over your focal fabric. And when you're choosing your focal fabrics, choose something that has good contrast between the background and the print so that you will be able to see it through the silicone. So next we're going to sew a framing onto the silicone. You have cut 4 3-inch pieces, 2 shorter and 2 longer. You're going to start, and these are ironed right sides together. We are going to insert the silicone into, oh dear, we have a problem. Sorry about that. Going to insert the silicone into this binding. The fold should be nice and tight against the silicone. And then we are going to clip this in place. We're going to sew this on with a scant 1/4 inch. You can use your regular 1/4 inch foot, or you can use your zipper foot. Give them both a little test, see what works better for you. So first you're going to sew the 2 short sides on. And after you sew those short sides on, you will go to the ironing board and you will press both the little back flap and the top flap up. I find it works best if you press one side and then come back and press the other side. If you try to press both at the same time, you're apt to not get a real nice press outward, to have some little folds in here. So once you have pressed both the short sides out, you can come back and add the longer sides and sew them on. And then you will also press those out. Once you have pressed all 4 sides out and they're nice and flat, you will come back with your ruler and trim the piece such that from the seam to the edge is 1 inch and 1/8. Now, if for some reason you don't have 1 inch and 1/8, just trim them all the same. We will be able to adjust the size of the backing to fit the front without any problems. So don't worry too much about that 1 inch and 1/8. So then you have the front all prepared. Next, you are going to need to quilt your backing. So you'll have your backing, batting, and you can use a piece of muslin. We're really just looking for a piece of fabric to make our quilt sandwich. So it doesn't have to be muslin, it can be any piece of scrap fabric you have, as long as it's not going to show through to the front. I chose just to use my walking foot and to do a diamond quilting. And this is just 1 inch apart. You could also do a channel quilting where you just quilted straight lines, maybe 1 inch apart, 3/4 of an inch apart, all the way down. Either way it will work. So you're going to get the backing quilted, and then you are going to also quilt the back pocket. So your back pocket irons wrong sides together, and you put your batting in there and fold it over, and you will also quilt that. So then you will have all your quilting done, and at that point you can take your front and lay it on top of your backing and trim your backing to match the front. And then you can lay your pocket on top of your backing and trim it to match your backing. So that will make it all square and all even. Okay, now that you have quilted the back and quilted the pocket, it is time to make your pocket binding. And this is just a small strip that you cut. You are going to take this to your ironing board and you are going to press it in half. You're going to open that up and you're going to press each edge into that center, both sides. They're going to fold in and fold over, so now you have no raw edges showing, and you're going to give this a nice press flat. So we're going to put the pocket binding on. Oh, we have a visitor today. Someone is enjoying the sewing. The pocket binding goes on the edge of your pocket with the fold. So I'm going to put that over. And you could pin, but I'm going to use my Wonder Clips. And get those in place. Now, we're going to sew and about 1/8 of an inch from the edge to put this pocket binding on. And you'll want to have made sure that you really folded your piece in half nicely so that when we sew the 1/8 of an inch, I'll be catching both sides. I've got a little troublemaker here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to sew my 1/8 of an inch, and I am using a walking foot for this. And I do believe the kitty, who's a little troublemaker here, we're going to get rid of that. Sorry, I'm filming at home today and I should have locked her up. Okay. There we go. Now we can sew. Okay, I have got my pocket binding on. So now I am ready to put the whole thing together that quickly. So I'm going to get my front, and you're going to want to make sure that your backing is the same size as the front. So whatever your front is trimmed to, you've got a problem. Got a problem. Somebody wants to stay. Okay. that whatever your front, trim your back to be the same size. And then you will also make sure that your pocket is the same width as your back. So if it needs a little trimming, I've got just a little smidge to trim off here. You will trim that off. Okay. Now I'm going, at this point, if you wanted to, you could, there are instructions for a hanging loop, and it is made the same way as the pocket binding, just a little narrower. So I'm going to, since we've got a lot of layers here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew these two sides together. So I've got the right side of the backing up and the right side of the pocket up. Oops, have not lined up my bottom, so I'm going to do that. Line up the bottom. If you were doing a hanging loop, this is the point that you would add your hanging loop, kind of right up here above the pocket, closer to the top, and we would just put that in right now. So I'm going to just stitch just the two sides, an eighth of an inch, a quarter of an inch. I'm going to go a scant quarter because we're going to come back and seam this, and I don't want to accidentally see my sewing when I turn this. I'm going to get rid of this cutting mat real quick. One side. Okay, now I have got my pocket and my pocket back attached. Okay, so now we are ready. We are going to place the front and the back right sides together, aligning all four pieces. Oh dear, you have no view now. You're getting extra entertainment this morning. Okay, so I've got the right side of the backing. This is the silicone is the right side of my front. I am placing those right sides together. Now you need to take note of where the bottom is. We're only going to sew three sides. We're going to leave the entire bottom open. So I'm going to do some clipping here. The Wonder Clips really come in handy on a project like this where you've got multiple layers to stitch together, and you probably bend a lot of pins trying to pin this. Okay, so I am going to sew a scant 3/8 of an inch. Normally we're working with a 1/4 of an inch, but we've got a lot of layers here, a lot of batting, so we are going to sew 3/8 of an inch. Kind of a scant 3/8, but that's what we're going to sew. I am going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. I'm going to pivot at the corner. Oh, I did a good guess. I'm at 3/8. Okay. And I back stitched at the end. Okay, so I have sewn 3 sides, but I have left the bottom completely open. So before I turn this, I am going to give the top corners a little trim just to make the corners not so bulky. Just a little trim there. I'm not going to worry about the bottom corners yet, just the top corners. So I've given the corners just a little trim. Now, when I turn this, you've got your front layer, this pocket layer, and the back layer. When we turn this, we want to be reaching in between the back layer and the pocket when we turn it. So when we first turn it, we want the pocket over the front. So if you've got something to poke your corners out with, I'm going to reach in here with my point turner and just gently, I don't want to poke any holes. I'm going to gently shape those corners. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, it's time to close up this bottom. I'm going to make sure all 3 layers are good. And I'm going to clip. And again, I'm going to use that scant 3/8 of an inch, and I am going to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Getting myself set here. This seam is pretty thick now. Okay. Now at this point, if you want to, you can zigzag this edge. I think I am just going to stitch another straight line about halfway, about 1/8 of an inch away from the first line, just to flatten it down. It'll be that will just help that inside, that's to lay flatter. Okay, now I'm just going to turn it again. So now we've got, I'm just going to reach in between the silicone and the pocket, and I'm going to turn this. And just my light a little bit for you. I'm going to, oh, you know what? I forgot to trim that pocket corner. I went to poke that pocket corner out and I could see I was not going to get a nice pocket. I'm just going to take my scissors and angle cut a little triangle off of each side. Make sure not to clip through my stitching. Now I should be able to poke that corner out. Okay, take my turner. Okay. Now, if you can take this and you can iron it if you would like, because the silicone will handle the iron. But you have got a nice trivet that is resistant to heat, and it has a pocket in the back, which, so if you want to use this as a hot pad, you can just stick your hand in the pocket and use this for getting cookies out of the oven or a hot pan off of the stove. It will work both ways since it's got this pocket on the back. And you are done. So, thank you for joining us today for this class.